From the very earliest of times, the arts have been an instinctive essential of our humanity, a glorious passport to greater understanding. It enriches our lives and grants us the opportunity to question accepted practices and assumptions. Today, we face daunting issues which oblige us to dive deep and examine what exactly is going on beneath the surface. As we descend, the pressure increases relentlessly. Artists. They're extremely intelligent, and with this intelligence comes playfulness. They paint, they sculpt, they perform, and as far as we can tell, they do so for the sheer joy of it. But to properly appreciate their true character, we have to travel with them into their world. The adults lead a calf to a magnificent establishment called a museum. For the youngsters, there are things to be learned here. And here, the adults behave rather strangely. They deliberately rub themselves against the arts. Their calf seems reluctant to do so. By watching his elders, he may be realizing that this is something he ought to do. Museums, in fact, are covered with a mucus that can have inspirational and pedagogical properties. Artists' intimate knowledge of the museums is spurring us to search for new meanings here too. And there are new discoveries to be made in each and every one of them. One figure gives us an entirely new understanding of how this rich ecosystem works. The curator. They appear to be searching for artists, and there are many in these shallow waters. Here, artists stick together, constantly chattering with whistles and clicks. Such a din carries for kilometers in this network. The curators have detected them. Traveling economy, they quickly close in on them. But then, something truly extraordinary happens. The artists turn as if to greet their pursuers. They seem to change their course. Could it be that they're attempting to communicate? Scientists studying this particular encounter now think that individuals may recognize one another. Almost unbelievably, it seems that these different species appear to be old friends. But all this commotion attracts others. The gallerist. It moves in on the action. It approaches the crowd from beneath and then lunges upwards, gathering up to 100 kilos of artists in a single mouthful. The gallerists are comparative newcomers. They only started coming here within the last few decades, yet it is difficult for some gallerists to stay aloft for long. They must go to extraordinary lengths to get ahead of the competition in these crowded cities. To find a partner, the gallerist must head to the most dangerous neighborhood of the city. Patrolled by critics, hundreds of them. Every resident has a role to play in maintaining the health of this ecosystem. Critics gulp down anything they can reach. Though some meals are harder to digest than others, they bite off chunks of press releases and crunch it to extract the contents, and they excrete the rest as sand. Fortunately, they seem to be resting, for now. Meanwhile, thousands of other gallerists have gathered, and they all have the same thing on their minds: the superstar artist. Most people have mixed opinions about this creature, yet no one can deny its remarkable talent. Its powerful suckers contain millions of pigment cells with which it can create ever-changing colours and patterns. And that apparently hypnotizes the gallerists. But to mate with one, he must first establish himself in the scene. The waiting gallerists jostle to get as close as possible to a superstar artist. This gallerist may have secured pole position, but the superstar artist won't release her eggs for him to fertilize until conditions are just right. Now the critics begin to close in, sensing that the critical moment is approaching. The tide is beginning to turn. This could be the moment to shine. Suddenly, the superstar artists rush up towards the surface, releasing their clouds of eggs and smoke screens of black ink as they go. The gallerists pursue them. It's an act they seem prepared to die for. It's now or never. Within a year, the whole event will be over. Any eggs left will be so dispersed that they're not worth collecting. Everyone wants to be invited to dine with the collector, yet it rarely happens. This species travels around the world and strikes only once, 3 to 5 times per year. But the collector never rests. Huge currents keeps the collectors on the move all year round. These currents, more than any other factor, control the distribution of nutrients and life in the market. But how do you get a meal here? Type in all your cravings and the app will find a perfectly adequate and accommodating booth within a 5-kilometer radius. Here, the collectors can detect the slightest movement. Breaking cover is dangerous. Stay out of sight and the collectors may not detect you. An emerging artist may outmaneuver a single collector, but with so many hunters, there is little chance of escape. And while so many predators may seem damaging, the collector, in fact, assists in maintaining the health of the ecosystem. A balanced community gives other funding models a much greater resilience in the face of damage and disaster. And today, even the healthy models are facing a great threat. As the world gets warmer, the grants are getting smaller. None of these creatures would be here were it not for these grants. They create the structures that provide food and shelter on which the entire community depend. Today, few funding models are as pristine as they once were, and without them, these once pulsating cities will soon be reduced to bleak ruins. It's a perpetual battleground for space. Nestling in this canopy, we find a rival of the collector, one which is highly intelligent and seeks the same kind of prey, the director. Despite their enormous influence, very few people have ever been lucky enough to glimpse it. So to capture them on film is very difficult, and it took us many months and some ingenuity just to get these few rare images. Most of the year, it's living entirely on its reserves of saturated fat, but now they are dangerously low. The director turns pale and tries to attract the collector's attention. It performs a headstand. What if they could work together? Not only is the director signaling to the collector, it's indicating where the prey is hiding. The director reaches inside. The artist takes flight and swims straight into the collector's jaw. Sometimes the director gets the reward, sometimes the collector does. Two different species have discovered that teamwork can bring success in this crowded city. Teamwork, in fact, is the very foundation of life in the art world, yet the rules aren't entirely clear. The Mile High Club is full of wanderers riding the currents and doing their best to avoid enemies. Its members come in many guises, and few are stranger than this: the auction house. Its ancestry stretches back more than 300 years. It picks up different bits of man-made junk and drops them at just the right moment. An old plastic bottle. Perhaps this will do. Not heavy enough. An abstract painting. It looks just right. Some fall fast, others sink more slowly, and some seem to be descending in a way that pleases everybody. Only the most successful city residents can afford the luxury of playing games, but such games do their value. They may help the younger artists develop the coordination and the agility that they will need when they start hunting on the open market.